Welcome to Faith and Freedom. For the next few minutes, we hope to inform, inspire, and encourage you as we discuss the legal victories and challenges to your fundamental freedoms and religious liberties. Faith and Freedom comes to you from Liberty Counsel, a civil liberties education and legal defense organization. Join us now as Matt Staver, the President and General Counsel of Liberty Counsel, explains the latest legal issues all across this country in the courtrooms of America. Liberty Counsel is winning the battle for your constitutional freedoms.
10 Commandments illegally pulled off students' lockers by Virginia School Administration. I'm Matt Barber, Vice President of Liberty Counsel Action and Associate Dean with Liberty University School of Law, in again today for Matt Staver. And joining me in studio is Deryl Edwards, President of Liberty Counsel Action and a Director with Liberty University School of Law. Well, Deryl, Liberty Counsel recently sent a letter to the Floyd County, Virginia High School Administration requesting the reversal of their censorship of religious materials posted by school students on their own volition, of their own initiative, on the face of their own lockers. And on February 23rd, Jacob Aggie and other students who were members of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes posted the copies of the 10 Commandments on the face of their assigned lockers. And very quickly thereafter, Principal Barry Hollinsworth and Assistant Principal Tony Diebler removed each copy. Jacob then met with the Principal Hollinsworth, who explained that he could not permit students to use the face of their lockers for religious expression, because if he did, students of all religions could use their lockers for religious expressions of their respective religions. Well, A. B, he's out of line. The principal is out of line here. The school district is out of line here. And this is in large part due to this disinformation campaign that we see and have seen perpetuated for decades by groups like the ACLU, we talked about earlier this week, groups like People for the American Way and Americans United for Separation of Church and State, other anti-Christian organizations that seek to recreate an America in their own secular humanist self-image. This is just a microcosm. This instance in Floyd County is just another example of, I think, oftentimes well-meaning administrators buying into unconstitutional nonsense that they've been force-fed over the years.
Well, what's interesting in here, and this is going to be painful to say, but once again, you mentioned the ACLU. The ACLU has come to the defense of the students.
Yes.
And unbelievably told the principal they do have the right to put the posters up. But you bring up a good point. I think the ACLU is partly responsible, in fact, greatly responsible for the attitude that the principals, they operate in total confusion, because they're thinking, well, you've told us for years we can't do this. Now, all of a sudden you're saying we can. We don't know which way to go.
Well, we're right. So the ACLU is responsible for creating a great deal of confusion on this issue. On other issues, at least, they're stepping up and doing the right thing here and advising this school district here that they're out of line. Well, Deryl, these acts of censorship violate the students' rights to free speech. Students at the school are generally permitted to decorate the faces of their assigned lockers without prior approval of staff or administrators. But school officials now say that their prior approval is necessary for students' expressions on their assigned lockers so that they can censor religious viewpoints. And a tour of the school would quickly reveal a variety of student expressions of school spirit, supportive activities, birthday well wishes, social causes, and so on. And in this case, the school has opened up student lockers for student expression and is targeting and monitoring and specifically targeting religious speech, which is unconstitutional viewpoint discrimination. The school district is out of line here, and they need to take corrective action as soon as possible. And I would suggest at least put out an acknowledgement that they were out of line and with an apology, but at the very least correct this unconstitutional behavior.
Well, once again, it's also important for us to take a stand for our rights as we have them and never be afraid to express them. And as far as the ACLU is concerned, I think one of the things that's happened is, you mentioned the other day how many times Matt Staver, Liberty Counsel, and others have defeated the ACLU in court over issues.
92% of the time.
92% of the time. Well, don't you think maybe that's been a little bit of a learning curve for the ACLU? After losing 92% of your cases, maybe they sort of got the message. And maybe 10 or 15 years ago, they might not have issued this statement to the principal. But after time, we might as well issue this statement because we're probably going to lose again if we don't.
Well, that's right. And the ACLU, there is no doubt about it that they are anti-religious, but particularly anti-Christian. Roger Baldwin, the founder of the American Civil Liberties Union, famously said that communism is the goal. So the roots of the American Civil Liberties Union are in communism. This isn't something, it's not a pejorative. I don't point the finger and say you're a bunch of commies, Reds, communist, as an ad hominem attack. It simply is what it is. The ACLU is rooted in communism. Central to communism is the abolition of freedom of religious expression, particularly Christianity. And I find it interesting that the ACLU will trip over themselves to defend Muslims' rights, certainly. And in this instance, again, we need to point out that the ACLU did issue a letter saying that the school district was out of line here. But I'm speaking in general terms. The ACLU will bend over backwards to defend religious liberty when it comes to the Muslim faith, if you will. But has displayed systemically and systematically a real hostility toward particularly the Christian faith. And I think that there is definitely a spiritual aspect to that. Because communism, for instance, the ACLU, definitely represents a postmodern, secular, humanist worldview. They embrace things that would be considered immoral, sexual immorality, homosexuality, and other things. So I find that this hostility we see toward Christianity and the left's defense, which we talked about earlier this week, of the Muslim faith, for instance, and other, Wiccans and New Age religions and so forth, I think Christianity is particularly under attack because Christianity is truth. It's other false religions don't represent the threat of truth, of God's truth, to those who embrace a worldview that central to that worldview is moral relativism. So I think that the ACLU and other progressive groups and anti-Christian groups particularly have Christianity in the crosshairs because they are in rebellion against God's objective truth.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's true. And I think the ACLU, as we've said earlier, it is at the very least created a climate of confusion, especially for educators. The school area has been one of their primary emphasis to clamp down. We've had cases where students, this is an example of students who have done their own personal student-initiated speech. Mm-hmm. But there's been cases that have had to be fought in the past where students drew a picture of Jesus on a Christmas card and hung them up, and they were told to take them down.
Where the ACLU has been on the other side.
So you cannot blame, in some sense, educators to be somewhat confused about this.
Well, as they say, even a blind squirrel will find a nut every once in a while. Right. So, no, I think the ACLU is calculated here. I think they know that if they occasionally come down on the right side of the law, and the right side of the Constitution, it certainly makes it more difficult to say, well, look, we just defended these students' rights here. In this case, how can you call us anti-Christian? Well, the preponderance of the evidence, overwhelming weight of the evidence indicates that the ACLU is extremely hostile to Christianity. Well, and you mentioned, Deryl, the ACLU's confusion. And to clear up some of that confusion, we need to understand there's a crucial difference between government speech, which endorses religion, and student speech, which endorses religion. Here we have student speaking, and while a school could prohibit all stickers on student lockers, for instance, and just say no stickers, no speech on the lockers, period, they cannot selectively discriminate against religious viewpoints while allowing other secular viewpoints. And this, in the case that we're talking about here in Floyd County today, this is exactly what the school has done. Well, folks, if Liberty Counsel were not here, if we were not here to educate you, to educate the public, to educate the school district against the misinformation that we have seen coming from groups like the ACLU, like Americans United for Separation of Church and State, then things like this would simply go unnoticed, and these types of bullying tactics would go unchecked and unchallenged. We are here to defend the rights of these students and people like them to express their faith, to express their opinions and their beliefs, regardless of viewpoint. And in this case, we are doing so because of the gifts of people like you. We would encourage you to join the Ministry of Liberty Counsel. Go to lc.org or give us a call at 800-671-1776. Become a part of the Liberty Counsel team.
You have been listening to Matt Staver of Liberty Counsel. Our hope is to encourage and inspire you to stand up for your faith, family, and freedoms. We can accomplish a lot when we work together. Get informed and get involved today. Sign up for our free monthly newsletter, The Liberator. We will send it out to you free of charge. Stay informed with our Liberty Alert email update. Just click on the website at www.lc.org or call us at 1-800-671-1776. Tune in next time to learn more about your rights right here on Faith and Freedom.